Hey everybody, I'm here with Paula Turley. She's chair of the Forms Committee, and on March 18th, the Board of Directors approved new revisions to the Purchase and Sales Agreement, which will go live on May 1st. Paula's going to share all those revisions with you now.
Hi everyone, hope everyone is faring well with the pandemic and quarantining. So we are going to go ahead and do some ECAR work during this pandemic, and one of the big things is we're going to put out a new purchase and sales agreement. Now, everyone realize that we're not doing a change like we did last time. So a couple of years ago, you can remember that we did a major change to the purchase and sales. This time around, we're just doing some light changes with some of the formatting, but we are going to make some larger changes within the inspection section. ECAR, we heard you. And so there's some things there that are going to make a lot more sense to you in the way that you fill this form out. It's going to be a lot easier. So just to give you an idea of some of those changes. So if you look the purchase and sales agreement on the screen, one of the things we did was, if you notice in any of the sections where it used to say a date and then it used to have a dash and then like a 20 and then a dash, it's just got a line now. So we just kind of put a line wherever there was a date, so that there's no issues with our electronic programs, and it also allows you to put a little bit more information. In fact, we're going to allow you to put in text in this section, just in case there's some situations that require text. We also, at the bottom of every page, used to ask for dates. So now we've just changed it, just initials now. And the only page that's going to have dates is going to be the last page. So that will essentially be your date of contract, whoever's the last person to date that page. We did add an additional third buyer and seller signature line at the bottom, as well as reforming and restructuring some of the other sections, including the finance section. If you take a look here under financing, you'll see that there's still your cash transaction and your mortgage finance transaction contingencies. But we've also added the buyer's ability to close is contingent upon the sale of their property, and that you can go ahead and attach your contingency for sale addendum to the contract. So we thought that was a good change to make, so that you can see right on the first page what's going on with the buyer's ability to purchase. In addition to that, there's some just minor changes under the mortgage financing section. We added renovation type, and then you can just list in the blank there what kind of renovation loan, because there's all different kinds out there. So we alleviated some of the discrepancies there. And if you keep on going down here into the financing section, we did add a sentence to this last paragraph right here. So for renovation loan financing, this agreement is contingent upon mortgage commitment and the buyer's acceptance of additional required improvements as determined by the lender on or before the mortgage commitment date. Now we added that here because we were hearing from our membership that with renovation loans, there could be a situation where a kitchen may have wanted to be put in, but now you have to put a septic system in. Maybe that wasn't what the buyer wanted. And so that buyer has the ability at that point to determine whether they want to continue to move forward with the new information that they were given for the new renovations they have to do. So that's a good change to make for buyers to have that option. Under the appraisal section, we've just added the word only under here, check only one, because there's some issues here that we're seeing within our membership. A lot of people, a lot of realtors are checking more than one box here, VA and also maybe the D or the FHA and also the D box. Unfortunately, with the way that the addendums are structured and the way that the government programs are structured, when you have a VA loan or an FHO loan, you could really only choose those addendums and you cannot check box D. The debt box D is more for your conventional loans or any other type of loan financing that you want to make the appraisal contingency a part of that is not an FHA or a VA loan. If we need to do a little bit of education on that, we absolutely can, but just be aware that it's not really necessarily a huge change, but it's something we just need to work on a little bit better within our membership. And we just added the word only here to make that kind of sink in a little bit more. Coming down a little bit further, if you'll notice, there's a section missing. And what that section is the time to accept. That's a big change as far as removing of that section. And the reason that was done was because we did get some very good legal advice from our ECAR attorneys that indicated that this was a confusing and misleading section. The time to accept is being misused by our membership. We polled our membership to find out how it's being used, and it was best to take it just completely out and to deal with any questions or issues with when you want your sellers to respond within a body of an email or separately, verbally. So that's taken out of this contract altogether because we just didn't want any more legal issues with that section. Continuing to the page 2, we did some changes here to the counterparts and electronic signature section. Just added the counterparts area into it. We cleaned up some of the language. Now it's seller's agent, not listing agent. We took the check boxes out for all of the contact information. So it's just a cleaner area.
And so, Paula, everyone understands what counterparts is, meaning that you could sign a contract, send it over, and that would be one piece of it, and somebody signs over a different piece of it, and it all becomes one contract. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. So then under encumbrances, there's not really much change here. Fixtures and other personal property, however, we did add to it. You'll see that after your normal lines that you normally see to put in your appliances and such, there's a section here that states that the following leased items are located on the property and don't convey. And then there's an example of a few different kinds of leased items so that you can actually indicate what those are. Now on our property condition disclosure report, there is section on there for this particular situation or these situations, but the property condition disclosure report is not something that all sellers need to fill out. And so there's always going to be the question of what is leased and what isn't. And so to clarify what is and isn't, we've added the section so that there's no question as to what is going on. And then here's section 11. We heard you guys loud and clear as far as how this area was a bit confusing, where there was a section to either indicate yes or no whether you've received disclosures. Now, if the buyer has received disclosures, you have them initial. And if they haven't, they simply don't initial. Simple as that. A lot easier, a lot more pleasing to the eye, and a little bit better of a look to the contract. If you skip down to the next page, this is really where you're going to see the big change that we made. And this is really all because you guys spoke and we heard. So under the inspection section, we cleaned up the language up at the top. So you're still putting in your date for your report receipt date. But instead of initialing, we've indicated that you need to check the appropriate boxes below. And we've added, we put the target housing language in a box to kind of make it more prevalent and clear. And then here we have a couple of sections A, B, and C for you to initial as appropriate. So if you decide that, if the buyer decides they want to, if they want to waive their right to conduct a risk evaluation, they initial there. If they elect to perform no inspection attached, they initial here. But if they do elect to perform, then they initial in C. And then they can check up as appropriate any of these inspections. And these are essentially the same inspections that were on our original contract, with the exception of the mold inspection is missing. And the reason we did that is because mold is something that, it's a little bit more objective. It's not something that it's a pass or fail.
It's not required by the state either.
Right. So we didn't want to, we were muddying the waters a bit by putting that in there. If you do want to do a mold inspection, you certainly can do that, and you can check the other box and just indicate mold in that section.
And same with pyrrhotite. If you wanted to do a pyrrhotite inspection, you would just put it in other and writing.
Right. And, we did discuss at great length whether to keep mold in and add the pyrrhotite as a new inspection, but it was decided that this was a better way of handling it. and also a little bit more user-friendly with all the checkboxes. So section D of the inspection section is where the seller is going to be, see what the seller is responsible for, such as the working utilities when the inspection's happening, whether or not they have to pay for the pest inspection for VA loans, and whether or not they are going to be responsible for exposing the cover for the septic and pumping of the septic. And so we simply just need to check appropriate boxes instead of
So if none of those are checked, then the buyer is assumed to be paying for the inspection.
Correct. So anything above here in sections C of 13, if it's checked, then the buyer's paying for it unless you otherwise note it somewhere else in this contract. And there is a section on the last page for additional provisions for you to do so if that is the case. Under section 14, under remedies for inspection, the biggest change on here was that we all do business where we don't always ask for seller to do a repair. And if you read through our current contract, the only real thing you can ask for within this section is a repair, not a credit, not a remedy. So we changed that wording to say that now the buyer can ask for a remedy for the unacceptable condition rather than a repair. Okay, so that's a change that we made under this section that I think makes more sense for the way we all do business. Continuing down, we did add the word calendar days anywhere to have a little bit more clarity as to what we're talking about rather than just days. And then on the last page, there is a change to the deposit section. Our escrow deposit section is now called deposit. And we've listed it so that you make the check payable to the listing broker, and then you can actually list, if you still want to, you can put the listing broker name in, but you can also list the closing attorney or whoever else is going to be considered the escrow agent involved with the transaction, so that the language continues forward talking about the escrow agent and not the listing broker all the way through. So that's a change that we made. And of course, also we added the calendar days in the section. Going down the additional provisions, there's more lines, so you can add more information if you need to. And again, there's 3 lines now rather than 2 for buyer and seller signatures, and there's your date for your contract. So that's pretty much all the major changes that we've made to the contract, Susie.
Great. Thanks so much for explaining it, Paula.
You're welcome.
Okay,
and I hope the membership loves it.
Stay safe out there.
Thanks. You too.